The girl was targeted by a sniper. A bullet passed through the glass, missing her by just 0.004 inches, piercing through her cheek and shattering the family portrait. Terrified, she covered her head and crouched on the ground, forcing herself to stay calm. She reached for the gun on the floor, but the sniper's next shot sent it sliding under the sofa. Despite her extreme fear, she continued to compel herself to remain calm. She remembered her uncle's advice to use blind spots, to face death head-on in order to survive, and to use refractive objects to observe the enemy. If she could find a blind spot, she could escape. She immediately picked up the broken pieces of glass and tied them to a broomstick, creating a makeshift observation tool. Carefully, she extended the broomstick outward, while the sniper across the way watched her every move, mocking her for watching too many movies. Then he pulled the trigger, shattering the piece of glass with one shot. The girl was going to use a broom to deal with the sniper. She raised the broom, this time a little higher. This action left the sniper puzzled, but he didn't hesitate to pull the trigger. Only a small piece of the glass remained. The girl raised the broom again, this time to its highest point. Instead of hitting the glass, the bullet hit the roof. The girl deduced through mathematical formulas that the bullet was flying from left to right, and the highest point in the diagonal direction was the blind spot. She climbed onto the refrigerator, instantly disappearing from the sniper's view. The sniper immediately ordered the driver to change position, deducing that the girl was going to jump from a high point. The girl prepared to jump, but instead, she leaped straight up. At the same time, the sniper fired a shot. The girl threw herself toward the sofa, narrowly avoiding the bullet passing 2 inches above her. She successfully landed on the sofa. She immediately reached for the gun under the sofa, but couldn't quite reach it. She then lifted the sofa upright, blocking the sniper's line of sight. Surprisingly, there was a sniper rifle hidden inside the sofa. Great, it's time to counterattack, she thought. The sniper outside aimed at the girl again, only to suddenly realize that the girl had also raised a sniper rifle, aiming straight at him. The sniper was so scared he was about to wet himself. Could the girl really kill the sniper? The girl, named Stacy, and her uncle relied on each other for survival, but she never expected her uncle to commit suicide. Stacy looked at the wound on her uncle's neck and suspected foul play, but the police informed her that there was no one captured on the surveillance cameras at her uncle's house for the past half-month, making it unlikely that he was murdered. As her uncle's body was being taken away, Stacy noticed a tattoo in a spot. She was sure she hadn't seen a tattoo on her uncle before. She remembered the last time she saw her uncle. Not only did he install burglar-proof windows for her, but he also gave her an iron wardrobe and showed her how to hide inside it in case of a shootout, informing her that bullets wouldn't penetrate it. Stacy thought her uncle must have gone mad. After all, how could a poor student like her ever get into a shootout? Her uncle didn't explain but repeatedly emphasized to Stacy that she needed to remember her student ID number. Upon returning to her uncle's house, Stacy ran into her elementary school classmate, Jason. From him, she learned that Jason had been helping her uncle sell pipes online. Seeing Stacy's troubled mood, Jason offered to help clean the bathroom, where her uncle had committed suicide. Suddenly, Jason noticed a blood-stained cabinet and found an old mobile phone inside. The funeral of her uncle was also very dangerous. 2 strangers arrived, behaving oddly, and no one knew them. Could her uncle have some sort of special identity? After the funeral, Stacy, who had remained calm throughout, looked at the home she had shared with her uncle, and suddenly broke down in tears. She recalled the first time she met her uncle. He had been away from home for many years, but upon returning, he immediately fought with her over the last piece of meat. Seeing only one piece of grilled meat left, Stacy didn't hesitate to grab it and put it in her mouth. However, a few days after her uncle returned home, her grandmother passed away. Her uncle suspected foul play, but her brother didn't agree. At her grandmother's funeral, her mother entrusted her uncle with taking care of the young Stacy. However, her uncle had to leave abruptly, instructing Stacy not to open the door for anyone. The girl was alone at home when suddenly the door lock began to turn. Stacy tiptoed to the peephole and saw a man standing outside the door, causing her to retreat in fear. The door was then unexpectedly opened, and the man walked in, but in the next moment, he was suddenly dragged back out, followed by the sound of punches and kicks, leaving Stacy trembling and sitting on the ground. At that moment, a man claiming to be her uncle's friend walked in. He instructed Stacy to go back to her room and not to open the door under any circumstances. However, despite his warning, the sounds of the fight outside made Stacy extremely curious. She pushed open a crack in the door and saw that her uncle's friend had been murdered and that his arm had been severed. It was then that she realized that she was in imminent danger and quickly hid. Just then, 2 assassins burst into the room searching for Stacy. One searched the floor while the other opened the wardrobe. but neither found her. As the man lay on the bed, he suddenly noticed the curtains being blown by the wind, and immediately got up to pull them open. Stacy was crouched on the outer side of the wall, realizing that assassins were chasing her. The assassins were also smart and spotted Stacy. Terrified, Stacy had no choice but to let go, and landing perfectly on the sofa below, she quickly pulled herself up and ran, but unexpectedly, a van rushed out and collided with her, causing a crowd to gather instantly. The two men had no choice but to abandon their pursuit. When Stacy regained consciousness, she found herself in the hospital. However, the assassins also arrived at the hospital. Stacy managed to escape all the way to the mortuary, where, in desperation to stay alive, she lay down next to a corpse. Accidentally, she uncovered the white cloth covering the body, only to find her own mother lying there. At that moment, the assassin caught up with her. Seeing the temperature rise in the mortuary's freezer, he instantly understood that Stacy was hiding inside. Desperate, Stacy hugged her mother tightly. Just as the assassin was about to stop the freezer, the door behind him suddenly opened, revealing his accomplice. He stood still, his gaze vacant. Suddenly, a hand reached out from behind his accomplice, holding a handgun, which was then fired at the assassin. It turned out to be her uncle who had saved the day. Her uncle then took Stacy back home. The young girl was being chased by an assassin. She managed to escape by hiding in the mortuary. However, due to the intense shock, Stacy developed aphasia. She refused to communicate with anyone. Upon seeing how distraught Stacy was, her uncle couldn't bear it and began hitting himself in the face. He was filled with immense guilt for making Stacy an orphan. Stacy, now unable to speak, was bullied at school. The school bully tripped her, causing her meal to scatter on the ground, and she fell down. Noticing that Stacy was not resisting, the bully went even further, picking up a carton of milk to smash on her head, only to be stopped by Jason. Just as Stacy was about to silently leave, the bully slandered her parents, pushing Stacy over the edge. Stacy grabbed a chair and swung it at the bully. The next day, the bully retaliated against Stacy by locking her in a dark cellar. Stacy desperately pounded on the door, calling out her uncle's name. Finally, there was a response. With a hammer, her uncle smashed the door lock, opening it. Stacy threw herself into her uncle's arms. At that moment, Jason arrived at the house, interrupting Stacy's dreams of her past. He handed her the phone he had found. As soon as Stacy opened it, she was horrified. In her uncle's bank account, a sudden influx of 70 million won was noticed, resulting in a total balance of 18.7 billion won. This was perplexing as her uncle, who sold pipes, couldn't possibly have such wealth. Upon opening her uncle's pipe-selling website, everything seemed normal. However, the purchase of 70 million won worth of pipes, enough to cover 7 miles, was undoubtedly abnormal. Fortunately, Jason, being a computer expert, quickly discovered a dark web page with the exact same name as Stacy's uncle's tattoo, Murder for Hire. Suddenly, a pop-up window appeared, inquiring about when the payment had been made and when the goods would be delivered. Stacy responded that the store had recently closed down and that they would refund the money. To her shock, the person on the other end directly mentioned her uncle's name and asked if he was really dead. Before Stacy could respond, they added, "Then you're also doomed, Stacy," leaving her completely stunned. Just then, the doorbell rang, and Stacy cautiously answered the doorbell. Under no circumstances should you open the door for strangers. The woman at the door had a handgun hidden in her bag. Just then, Stacy received a text message on her phone. "Don't die at someone else's hands, and I will personally come to kill you." The woman parked her car not far from the house and activated 4 drones carrying firearms, flying them toward Stacy's uncle's house. She also aimed an RPG at the house. However, at this moment, Stacy was unaware of anything. Meanwhile, Jason made a new discovery. The website was a marketplace for murderers, where one had to pass a test to become a member. Red members were assassins who could only purchase weapons for killing. Purple members were spies who could buy eavesdropping and surveillance equipment, as well as suicide materials. Yellow members were cleaners who provided post-crime cleanup equipment and offered services for absolving guilt. There were only 2 green members, Stacy and her uncle, who operated the website. The site also had a rule: no attacking green members. If anyone violated this rule, all members were obligated to protect the green members. Stacy couldn't believe it. Her uncle was actually a serious criminal, and her own name was on the website. Suddenly, there was a rumbling inside the house, and when they went out to see, they found that the walls had been completely destroyed by an explosion. Outside the window, a drone descended from the sky, launching an attack the next second, frightening Stacy and Jason to immediately lie down and take cover. Fortunately, the windows were bulletproof and remained intact. The house was now surrounded by drones. Stacy thought about escaping through the back door, but as soon as she opened it, she was confronted by a drone. She immediately retreated back into the house, thankful that the door was also bulletproof. It seemed her uncle had prepared for this. The drones ceased their attack, instead dropping timed bombs by the windows. With a loud bang, the windows shattered. The two ran into the room as the drones followed closely behind. Jason saw a metal wardrobe and hid inside. Though bulletproof, it offered no protection against bombs. As one exploded, it blew the cabinet door off. Just as the drones prepared for another attack, Stacy shouted for Jason to duck. She then used a slingshot to hit the drones directly, causing them to lose balance and crash to the ground. Stacy picked up a chair and smashed them to pieces. On the other side, a group of people gathered around their leader, who took out a knife and cut open his arm. Retrieving a chip, they severed ties with the marketplace for murderers, and then opened a box of firearms bought from Stacy's uncle. A long-haired man declared that whoever found Stacy first would receive a handsome reward. The group then set out to find Stacy. What other dangers will Stacy encounter? We'll find out in the next episode. This TV show is called A Shop for Killers. Kay recommends everyone to go watch the original as it's incredibly exciting. Thank you for liking and subscribing. See you next time. Bye.